Welcome back to FIFA in Freefall. Well, this week Zurich was supposed to be a launch pad for FIFA to announce all sorts of changes and reform in a move that was supposed to make us feel better about FIFA and its future. But those plans were scuppered when Swiss police raided the Bar-Al-Ak hotel. The phrase of the week here in Zurich for FIFA's final executive meeting for 2015 is reform for the future. But as often been the case, this year it is FIFA's past that comes back to haunt them. Football's governing body still has many thorns in its side. Among them fears of what move the FBI and Swiss authorities will make next and what fate awaits its former leader Sepp Blatter and his heir apparent Michel Platini. The still unexplained payment of 2 million Swiss francs Blatter made to Platini could destroy the careers of both.
And you said last year that Mr. Blatter is not corrupt. Do you still stand by that?
Yes. I tell you, what is currently reproached to him is a wrong management issue. He has not been accused of having embezzled money. And you see, I think someone in a position like that automatically makes mistakes in management. But once again, democracy, we are innocent until proven guilty. And as you know, there is an investigation in Switzerland organized by the federal judicial system here, and also an internal investigation. So I'm not going to comment on that. But I repeat, I mean, I'm absolutely convinced that history will judge him better than is judged now by the media.
Both men will have their chance to dispute any ethics committee decision at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. It's the way World Cups have been awarded that's causing FIFA so many headaches. And it was Sepp Blatter himself who 5 years ago opened that Pandora's box when he granted Qatar the right to host the 2022 World Cup. But while the controversy of a World Cup selection almost tears FIFA apart, it's also faced with another issue. Amnesty International says FIFA is not doing enough to protect the rights of migrant workers.
Till now there was no substantial meeting with FIFA officials, and we have never seen that they have made concrete steps, an action plan on monitoring human rights situation in Qatar. So they have tremendous influence, but so far they didn't use it for ameliorating the situation of migrant workers.
The head of the English FA, Greg Dyke, says that the decision to allow Qatar to host the World Cup is the poorest in FIFA's history. But with the way things are unfolding in the organisation, he's not certain if we've seen the worst of it. Joining me now is Benita Merciades, who's a former FIFA whistleblower and a Change FIFA Now campaigner. Benita, give us your impressions of the last few days of FIFA.
Well, it's almost business as usual at the moment. Ever since May, when the first arrests happened, we've really been waiting to see when the next lot of arrests would happen. And what was made clear today from Loretta Lynch and her colleagues was that there will be more arrests, and they're not going to stop until they uncover everything that needs to be uncovered with FIFA.
But just how has this been going on for so long and nobody has said, this stops here, especially in South America?
I think that's a really good question, and it gets back to even the current executive committee, most of whom have been there for a number of years, some dating back to 30 odd years, and others even say the past 3 years or so. They must have known that this was going on. They must have known that these people were not acting in an appropriate way. So why haven't they raised this before? They've left it to the US authorities, and before that to people such as whistleblowers and investigative journalists who have banged their heads against brick walls and been called all sorts of things for actually daring to raise these issues. But no one in the FIFA world has wanted to do so because they've been too comfortable in what they're doing.
And are the reforms announced going to be enough?
No, look, I don't think it is. Mr. Carrad's reforms had some good elements to it. But I think there are also some very worrying elements to it, and you wonder why they've actually recommended some of the things. But having said that, it proves the point. You cannot have reform set up by a bunch of insiders. They not only do they not actually understand some of the issues, but they when you have an organisation which the United States Attorney General is saying is so deep and so broad in terms of its corruption. I mean, she said that it was unconscionable what has gone on. She said that it was outrageous in terms of the betrayal of trust of football fans. You cannot have that organisation continuing to sort of fiddle around at the edges, pretending that they can solve things themselves. They clearly can't. One thing that New FIFA now has been pushing for all year is an independent reform process that is led by an eminent person who is eminent in governance, not in sport, not in football. Of course, you have to have football input to it, but you don't have to be an expert in football in order to have governance reform, because that's not what governance reform is about.
Not just the grand overseers of the world's biggest sport, but FIFA are also a financial powerhouse. TRT World's business editor-at-large, Craig Capitas, takes a look at what it could mean for the game's bottom line.
There's no doubt that the most interesting aspect of these charges is that they've been filed under what's called U.S. RICO statutes. That's racketeer, influenced, organized crime, and corruption statutes. These are laws that were specifically designed to apprehend, prosecute, and jail the characters that you would see in films like Goodfellas and The Godfather. The United States government is approaching FIFA as a racket, a protection scheme, a scam, and they want to put these people in jail. The key player in what happens next is not so much the sponsors who have threatened to maybe pull their sponsorships. Listen, you can always find another sponsor. Finding sponsors is easy. The problem that they really have is if the broadcasters pull out. And they're the ones who really need to put pressure on Blatter and FIFA, clean the entire place out, and bring in a new management team. Remember, FIFA's funding, 43% of it comes from broadcast rights. There's only, I think, about 28, 29% of the money comes from sponsorship. People tend to forget. You're not going to have, you can have a World Cup without sponsors, but you can't have a World Cup without television.
This week in Zurich was supposed to be FIFA's unveiling of its grand new reforms, but that was hijacked by the US Attorney General's office with more dawn raids. It's a low point in FIFA's recent history, and Peter Franks takes a look at how we got here.
Just over 5 years ago, Sepp Blatter and FIFA awarded the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 World Cup to Qatar. And suspicions have been growing ever since.
He is 79 years old today, so when he started to work with FIFA 40 years ago, it was a question of handshakes. You don't need this kind of contracts and everything. You don't need compliance, as is usual with banks today and other large organizations. You're doing a handshake, you're saying, yes, I agree, and then it's agreed.
And those suspicions have grown into indictments, arrests and charges. 3 of the 6 Confederation presidents and numerous FIFA executives are facing the scrutiny of the US Attorney General.
Not content to hijack the world's most popular sport for decades of ill-gotten gains, these defendants, as alleged, sought to institutionalize their corruption to ensure that it lived on.
Some of those facing accusations say they've done nothing wrong.
I've never received $1 franc, $1, €1 from anyone to vote in favour of one country to host the World Cup.
But investigations are continuing.
The message from this announcement should be clear to every culpable individual who remains in the shadows, hoping to evade this ongoing investigation. You will not wait us out, and you will not escape our focus.
FIFA has been likened to an old boys club. That club is now in free fall, and some of those old boys could be facing the rest of their lives in exile. Peter Franks, TRT World.
FIFA's trials and tribulations won't go away anytime soon. But the big question is, how can the organisation survive in its current form? They'll be back right here in February to vote for a new president, if there's anyone left. I'm Lance Santos, and you've been watching a TRT World special, FIFA in Freefall.
There is clearly much work to be done, and the people here at FIFA are fully aware of the significant challenges in front of us.
As I have stated before, anyone who seeks to live in the past and return soccer to its old ways is on the wrong side of progress.
Thank you very much.